Prevention is what needs to come first.
We need to reshape completely our AIDS response.
The AIDS epidemic is at a point where we recognize we still need to engage with behavior change.
The infections which take place today are the cases that have to be treated 6 or 8 years from now. So there's a very direct link between what happens in preventing new infections and what countries and communities will be facing in the way of numbers on treatment and the costs of treatment in the future.
There's been a lot of focus on the biological, the technical, the medical problems that are a cause of AIDS, without thinking about some of the determinants that are more distal, more distant, more related to context, more related to community.
We need certainly to come back to what aids2031 was also helping us to understand, to deal with more structural underlying causes, how to make sure that we link scientific evidence and social change.
The idea behind the concept that Dr. CDB and others are promoting is that we really need this new way of looking at prevention as the result of a combination of strategies to assemble a long-term response.
One of the working group reports that I was most impressed by is the one that was produced on the hyper-endemic countries and that focused on particularly the situation in southern Africa. And I think what I found most compelling about that report is that it reflected such a broad range of voices from that region. And it spoke in a very compelling way of the need to address very urgently the key drivers of the epidemic there, and to do it in a genuinely multi-sectoral fashion. It looked beyond the medical socio approach to responding to the epidemic, and it really talked about the broader legal, policy, structural framework that needs to be adjusted in order for interventions to be more successful there.
For the last 20, 25 years or so, we haven't had many very clear, obvious examples of successful efforts that have been, especially been led by government. We know that there have been cases of civil society organizations and mobilization which have led to behavior change but we recognize that governments and other bodies trying to work on HIV in their communities, in their countries, are at a bit of a crossroads trying to figure out what to do with prevention.
I wonder a little bit about all that we're saying about structural approaches and understanding the social context of the epidemic, whether that will lose momentum again, because there are some things that are emerging now, just like male circumcision, that may seem more cost effective in the short term. And so I think the challenge for us now is to try and place those within the context of other structural approaches and talk about how should those be combined. We don't want to pit those kinds of one-shot interventions against more complex interventions. We want to talk about how both can occur simultaneously.